On this video, I'm just going to quickly show using the replace function instead of add function for having multiple control inputs give different actions of your servos. This can be useful for any kind of animatronics, robotics, or puppeteering programming. For example, if you have a blink mechanism or some other paired servo that need to work in some way. So first thing I'm going to do is just create a new model on the radio. So I'll go to the model setup and add a new model, create the model, and I'm just going to choose the other type, which will give me no basic mixes, just a blank template to start with. So from the model setup mixes, you'll see that there's no mixes currently added. I'll come back here after I've registered and bound up this receiver and show you how to set up a couple of mixes here and how you can utilize multiple inputs to give different actions to these servos. So first thing I'll do is register and bind this TD-R18 receiver. Under the RF system, I'll select TD mode under the protocol. I'll turn the state to on and I'll go down to register. Now, while holding the button down on the receiver, I'll plug it in. And I'm just using a 2-cell LiPo battery. It'll show up here. Registration's okay. And then next, I'll bind it to receiver 1. So then power cycle the receiver. And it shows up again as TD18R. So now that I have this bound, you'll see right now there's currently no outputs going to my servos because I don't have any mixes assigned. My servos are plugged into channels 1 and 2 on the TD-R18. So I'm going to add a free mix. For the name, I'll just leave it as free mix, but you can choose whatever name that you would like it to be. For the source, in this case, I'm going to choose my right shoulder slider, and by moving it, it will select it here as the source. And I'll just click off of the screen anywhere outside of the main box. Now you'll see that the operation for this mix is add. So it's going to add 100% of the weight to these servos. It's still not doing anything because I haven't actually assigned the output channel for those servos. So I'm going to increase the channel count to 2 so that I have 2 output channels. For my first channel, I'll assign that to channel 1. And I'll just say yes to assign the mix to that output. And for channel output 2, I'll assign this to channel 2. And again, I'll apply the name to that output channel. So you can see now that my servos are working when I toggle the slider switch. In this case, they're not working together. They're opposite to each other. So I'm just going to reverse one. And you can see now that they're operating together as I raise or lower, for example, the eyebrows or eyelids. But let's say that you are using this as the eyebrows or the eyelids and you want it to blink and come back up. So you might want to use a push button on the back of the radio, for example. So I'll add a new mix to the last position. Again, I'm just going to leave it as free mix, but you can call it whatever you want. For the active condition, I'm going to click on always on, and I'm going to click and hold this button down. You'll see that it selects the SJ down, and I'm going to click outside of that box. And as I click that button, you can see that this mix now becomes active. I'm going to do the same thing for the source. So I'll click on the source, click and hold the same button down, and come back. Now I'm going to change the operation to replace. And by doing this, when I click this button down, it's going to replace whatever position that the slider is in with the full maximum push of the button. So I'll come down to the channel count again, change that to 2 channels. And again, I'm going to assign output 1 to channel 1 and output 2 to channel 2. And when I click the button, you can see again, they're working opposite to each other. So I'll reverse channel 2. And in this case, I want it to work opposite. So I'll just reverse channel 1. So no matter where I have the eyelids or the eyebrows, or in this case, the servos move to, when I click that button down, it will replace this slider position with the full position of that push button. Now, if it's overextending the servos, you can adjust this weight here, let's say to 60%, and it doesn't quite give as far of a throw on those servos. So this is just a quick example of how you can have 2 different inputs to give different function to 2 outputs of servos. For example, if you're doing a blinking mechanism or whatever other use case that you may see fit.